Amen. I want you to do me a favor. We usually do this when we play games, but I want you to like turn around to a neighbor, turn around and look at somebody, all right? And I want you just to look at them for a second. Like, just look at them, whoever it might be. Just look at them. If you have sunglasses on, you can take them off because there ain't no sun in here, all right? But I want you to look at their eyeballs. And just kind of look, not creepy look, okay? Just kind of look at their eyeballs, kind of look at their eyes, kind of see what's going on. And as you're looking into your eyeballs, I just want you to, I don't want you to be mean or anything, but I just want you to process what you're seeing when you're looking into their eyes. All right? Some got green eyes, some got blue eyes, some got light brown eyes, some got poop brown eyes. How many got poop brown eyes? That's what I call them, poop brown eyes. All right, some of us, all right, now look back at me. Look me in the eyes, because we're going to talk a little bit. But tonight, we're going to talk about the eyes. And we're going to talk about, like, look at these big eyeballs. That's some big eyeballs right there on that screen, okay? But we're going to talk about eyes tonight. How many of you ever heard the terminology, like, your eyes are the window to your soul, or your eyes are the window to your heart? How many of you have ever heard that? All right, so you've heard that before. And I was thinking about that saying, and I was thinking about how they say that the eyes are the window to what it is. And what that actually means is this is a quote that is often talked about and is often used that can actually impact our life. Because I don't know if you know this, but in the Bible, it actually talks about your eyes as well. So the same reference that we have where they're saying your eyes are the window to your heart or to your soul, the Bible actually talks about your eyes as well, and it talks about the light coming from your eyes or coming into your eyes. And every time I preach, every week that I preach, when I look up to the back, there are these lights that are up there that are shining, that are really bright, that are going into my eyes so that I'm able to then process and see everyone that's here. If it was pitch black in here, I wouldn't be able to see anyone. And so there has to do something of when you have a light that you can see. How many of you have ever got up in the middle of the night and like you had to go to the bathroom or you had to get a drink of water and all that, and you're like, oh, I got this. I don't need to turn on the light because I know where everything's at, right? So you get out of bed and you walk in and like you stumble into the kitchen, and next thing you do, you're like, because you walked right in the refrigerator. You didn't even see it there. Like, you're like, I swear that was a little bit closer. You know, like, you ran right into it. Or like, the worst, when you stub your toe on something in the middle of the night, like you catch that little pinky toe off of something, then you try not to scream and wake everybody up. So when it's darkness, it's really hard for us to see anything. It's hard when it's a dark time and we can't see through the darkness. And the Bible actually talks a lot about this, how we can allow light or dark to come into our eyes, which is incredible, that we can allow light or dark to come into our eyes. Now, remember this, the whole premise of this series that we're in, talking about the heart, stems from Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. It says, guard your heart because everything you do, it flows out of it. You remember 2 weeks ago, I talked about guarding your heart and the importance of having that guard placed upon your heart to not let anything out or to not let anything in that shouldn't. And we talked about that. And then last week, you remember I had the big old ladder, and we were talking about elevating your heart up to where God wants it to be. And tonight, we're going to talk about the eyes connecting to the heart. So really, in essence, be careful, little eyes, what you see. See, we have the ability to guard our hearts by guiding what we allow into our eyes. As crazy as that sounds, we have the ability to protect the inside of who we are, our character, our person, that person we're striving to. We have the ability to protect our heart by watching what we focus our eyes upon, which I think is just incredible that God has designed us this way. Because it says this in Matthew chapter 6, verses 21 through 23. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. The light within your darkness, how great is that darkness? And what's interesting is there are other versions of the Bible that use this word healthy here, where it says if your eyes are healthy, it actually says if your eyes are single, which is really interesting because we're not talking about like having a girlfriend and boyfriend and being single. We're not talking about that. We're actually talking about a single focus. Having one single focus of zoning in on one thing, one single vision of saying that is what I'm looking at and that's what I'm kind of going to. You ever watch those like YouTube videos or you ever seen those things where they're like stare at the little dot for the next 10 seconds and you stare at the little dot and they're like look away from them and as soon as you look away you still see the little dot. Why? Because you were focusing on that little dot with a single primary focus where everything in your eyes and then through your mind you were connecting to that dot. Then when you lifted your head up, everywhere you saw was that little dot. That's the single focus that we're talking about. That's how we're talking about how we need to be very careful on not being double focused. Not focusing on two things, but focusing on one. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a really hard time doing more things than one. Like sometimes I really have to focus it on one thing. Then there are other times I can do multiple things. But a lot of times if I'm doing multiple things, I'm not focusing on the single thing. And the single thing is not the best that it could be because I'm focused on all the other stuff. So the Bible is saying, listen, you need to be really single focused on what it is. And in a literal sense, we're talking about, double vision means it's not healthy. If you're seeing things double, it means that you need to get your eyes checked. Because there's something wrong going on. If I looked out here and I saw double of some of you, I'd be really scared. I'm not lying. Like I'd be petrified if I saw double of some of you, But listen, like when you start seeing double physically, something is not processing and focusing in right. So you have to go and get that checked. But it's not just a physical thing that we have to be really aware of, but also a spiritual thing that are not. Imagine what it would be to walk around and always see two of everything. It'd be very hard to know which one to focus in on. If someone's handing you something, it would be hard to focus on which one's handing. If someone was trying to help you to do something, it'd be very hard for you to tell the difference of what the two are. It'd be very difficult, and that's why it's really important that we have a single focus, that what we're putting our eyes upon is one thing and not two. And this was interesting because I've read this story thousands of times. Thousands of times. You've heard me preach on this story thousands of times. But I saw something that I've never seen before. And while I was looking over this message that was prepared, I was like, wow, this is something that I never really got before. See, way back in the beginning, we talk about in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then we know the creation story where he created the ground, he separated the light and the dark, and he created the animals, he created all these things. Then he said, I need to create someone to take care of it. So he created Adam, and then he created Eve because it wasn't good for man to be alone. So you have Adam and Eve, and you have right to the very beginning, we have this beautiful place that is absolutely perfect where they don't need anything. Imagine what would it be like to live in a place where you don't have to want anything. Where everything that you need is in one primary place. And that was the perfect place that Adam and Eve were living in. And all was perfect, all was good. And there was only one rule, only one. Do not eat of this tree that is in the garden. That's the only rule you have. You can eat and do whatever you want. Just don't eat of this tree. And that was it. That was all that happened. But see, you got to understand that Eve and Adam were both convinced that this garden was great. But just imagine every day being in this garden, and every day you're walking by the one tree you shouldn't, there's that tree we shouldn't eat of. But then the next day you're walking by, and weeks and years go by, and you're always looking at that tree. Oh man, that tree's right there. That tree that I shouldn't focus in on. That tree that I shouldn't have vision for. That tree that I shouldn't be looking at. But yet the tree is still there. See, what we have to understand is the very first sin was the sin of disobedience to God. But it actually didn't start in the heart. It started in the eyes. Check this verse out, Genesis 3:6. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to her eyes, and that the tree would be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit and ate it, and she also gave some to her husband Adam, who was with her. So check this out. Most of the times when we hear this story, we're thinking, oh, Eve just ate the fruit. No, it is actually very clear what it says. It says that she actually saw the tree first. She focused in on something that she shouldn't have focused on. It actually began with her eyes. Eve seeing the fruit and not being able to eat it was very enticing because she wanted it more and more and more because she saw it constantly, but she didn't go to it until one day she did. Eventually, she allowed her mind to be affected, which allowed her heart to be affected. So guys, what this tells me is it actually starts with what we're seeing. What we're watching, what we're participating, we're looking at things and we're seeing things of this world and we're like, listen, man, like I know that I shouldn't, but Eve messed up because of what she saw, which then affected her mind, which then affected her heart. Why? Remember, God created us to be primary focused, single focused on one thing, being able to see. And we have to understand that she allowed darkness to enter because of what her vision was focused on, which ultimately affected her heart. Because what we allow our eyes to see opens the window for what we allow our minds to think and our hearts to believe. I'm going to say that one more time. What we allow our eyes to see opens up for what we allow our minds to think and our hearts to believe. Now, I know school just started, and we just didn't have, summer was kind of this year. There wasn't much of a summer. The weather was off. It wasn't really warm all the time. We had rain. We had all these things. So it wasn't the best. But I was thinking about this, I bet during your free time this year in the summer, when you had all this free time, you were not thinking like, oh, man, I really wish I had some homework to do. Like, I'm sure that wasn't like the thought process that you had. Like, man, I'm so bored. I wish I just could do homework. Like, I don't know many people that are like that say in their free time, hey, this is what I want to do. And I know you wouldn't say, hey, that's me. Yeah, that's what I like to do. Chances are you're enjoying hanging out. You're enjoying being with your friends. You're enjoying swimming. You're enjoying playing games at the park. You're enjoying all of these different things that you are able to do, whether it's inside or outside. You're actually doing activities that you use your eyes to engage on. And then for those of you that are like, listen, I am not going outdoors. I'm going to stay indoors where it's nice and cool. You're either how many of you binge watched a show this summer? Yeah. Okay. Some of you binge watch. How many of you binge watched more than one show this summer? Exactly. Yeah. How many of you scrolled through Instagram half the summer, or Facebook, or Twitter, or any? Yeah. Okay. So we focused in on stuff all summer long. All summer long, we focused in on stuff, and whether it was social media, watching TV, playing video games, or any of these things, no matter what it was, we were focusing in on something. And guys, if I can just be totally honest with you tonight, if you could just catch this tonight, because I want to try to teach you a point of what is happening in culture. See, the culture that we are basically surrounding it's full of visual content. What you see is what actually captures your attention. What you see is actually what brings you and draws you in. Like when you see a movie trailer, you're like, oh man, that movie looks great. I'm gonna go see that movie. Why? Because the trailer looked enticing. I know when I'm scrolling through and I'm like, oh, where am I gonna eat? And someone posts a picture of some really good food locally. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go eat that. Why? Because it's enticing to my eyes and it's got my focus. And we live in a world that is so consumed with showing us things. And then once you see it, you want it and you desire it. And see, that's how we know cultural is working. Culture is everywhere. That's why when you watch TV ads, they say, hey, drive this or look like this or be like this. They're showing you actual visuals. That if you participate and you have these things, or if you do these things, or if you dress this way, or if you act this way, if you have this item, visually you're seeing like, hey, I can be like them. I can be kind of like them. That's why you see these famous brands are using actors and actresses. They're not using some Joe Schmo guy off the street that nobody knows. No, they use famous people because you'll be able to correlate and see that, oh, if this famous person is doing this, if this actress or this movie star or this pop singer is doing this, and ultimately I can be like that. But we have to understand too that just as much as we can look out into the world, there are going to be things that are pleasing to the eye that are good, and there are going to be things that are pleasing to the eye that are not good. There's going to be things that you see that are good and pure and filled with light, and then there are things that you're going to see that are not, that are filled with darkness and evil. Guys, you don't, at your fingertips right now, if I were to ask you to pull up a story, each and every one of you could pull up a story on your phone in seconds that is filled with darkness and horror and sadness and just bad, like a bad news story. Anyone could do it at any moment, at any second in this place. We could find. Why? Because our world is filled with this darkness that we can see. So often it's easy for us to become just like everyone else and to focus in on what everyone else is focusing in on. But we're not called to do that. We're called to actually be totally different than everyone else. But sometimes being a Christian, sometimes standing for Jesus, sometimes if people know I go to church, some people, if they know I worship God, if they know I really love Jesus, so maybe they won't like me. So I'm not gonna focus in on Jesus all the time, only part of the time. So this light that I have within my life, I'm only gonna focus in on it like when I'm at church. Because that's what people do when they come to church or come to youth group. But I'm not gonna do it at school. So I'm gonna have this beautiful light that shines out of my life, but I'm gonna let it shine when I'm at Refuge or when I go to church on Sunday morning, but I'm not gonna let it shine when I'm at work because I don't want my employees to make fun of me. I don't want my friends to think I'm weird because I love Jesus. I don't want this, I don't want that. So I'm not gonna allow light that is within me to shine anywhere. I'm actually gonna hide it. And the Bible is very clear about what this says. Check this verse out. Some of you might have heard this before. Luke chapter 11, verse 33, it says, "No one lights a lamp and puts it under a place where it can be hidden or under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand so those who can come may see the light." See, the same is true for us. If we have healthy eyes that see the goodness, then people are going to see the goodness in us as well. If we are focusing in on the light, then people will notice and focus in on the light as well. But this scripture is talking about, listen, if I can't see anything and I light a candle, it's no good for me to hide the candle. If I light the candle and then I hide it, well, then it doesn't light up anything. Or if I light the candle and I just put a big bowl on top of it and hide it completely, then what's the point of even having the light? I want everybody to look at me. Put your phones down. Look at me. Because I'm going to drive a point home with you. And I'm saying this with love. What good is it to have a light that you do not use? What good is it to just say, I'm going to live in total darkness all the time, but I have this light, but I'm never going to use it? It doesn't make sense. That's why it doesn't make sense to call yourself a believer of Jesus and to call yourself a Christian and not live for him. It doesn't make sense. You are either doing it or you're not doing it. And you have it or you don't have it. And if you have it and you're ashamed of it, then what are you doing? Why are you ashamed of the light that you have? Because the school needs your lights. The community, this community, Blair County needs your light. The world needs your light. They need to be able to see Jesus in you, and they need to be able to see something that's very real inside of you. Our eyes act as a window to our hearts and to our soul. That's very true. And allowing content that is of Jesus will help our heart be where it needs to be, looking on things that are good. And I'm not saying you got to watch preaching or you got to watch music videos that have to do with Jesus all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just putting your focus on your life on the right thing. When I'm talking about your eyes, I'm talking about the focus of who you are, focusing on the good things, the right things. Because there is so much good and there's so much great things to focus on, but sometimes we focus on the darkness and not the light. And Psalms 119 actually says this: I need to turn my eyes away from worthless things, and I need to preserve my life according to your word. See, when we turn our eyes away from this focus and put them on the right focus, then we are where we need to be. We are where we need to be. And then that helps our heart. A way that you guard your heart is by watching where your eyes go. A way that you guard your heart is making sure that you focus in on the one thing that is Jesus. That's how it works. That's a primary focus. And it's not focusing on anything else, because if you focus on anything else, you're going to miss it. But the Bible is very clear that when we focus in on Jesus, there is a light that shines. And then it causes us to light and shine as well. There's this old song that they used to sing when I was a kid. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. There's a Father up above looking down with love. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. See, if not, you might have heard that song. The song is very simple. It urges us to be careful what we allow our eyes to focus on and what we allow our eyes to see. It's something that's very important. Something we have to be very careful of what we focus in on and what we're seeing. Guys, we need to be careful what we see with our eyes in our life, what we choose to focus on. Because you show me what you focus on a regular basis, I'll show you where you'll end up. If you're focusing on anger and depression and hatred all of the time, you will end up there. If you focus your life on all of the bad things, you're going to end up participating in those things. But if you focus your life and your eyesight and what is inside of you on the good things, then it affects your mind, which then affects your heart, and then it leads you to where you need to be with God. Focus is everything when it comes to living this out in Christianity. Focus is everything when it comes to doing this. It's focusing on the right things, the healthy things, the good things. And spiritually looking at those things that give you life and that help you and that build you and that protect you. Because you can be looking at everything else out there, and it's not going to build you up like it should. See, this song reminds us there's a Father up above, and He wants the best for us. But we have to understand that He essentially is teaching us that we need to be very responsible for what we focus our eyes on and what we focus our life on. It's so important, guys, that we have a single focus. And so tonight, if you remember anything that I say tonight, I want you to remember simply this little jingle. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. Because ultimately, if you're not careful what you watch and what you see with your life, you're not going to like where you end up. Because ultimately, when we take our focus off of where it's supposed to be, it'll end up where it's not supposed to be. And that's not what we want. We want to see you guys thrive. We want to see you guys do well and succeed. Not just in a good job and making it through high school and making it through college or making it to we want to see you spiritually succeed in focusing on the right things. Because we believe that you can. And we believe that you will. God, I thank you for these students tonight. I thank you for each and every one of them, what you've called them to. God, I pray that as we just kind of split off into our teams and we kind of discuss some of these things tonight, God, that you will open up our hearts, you will open up our minds. God, I pray that we will be a generation that has a single focus, because that single focus is going to help our heart. And that single focus is going to change us and challenge us to be something so much more. So God, I pray tonight that you be with us, that you bless us. God, I pray that if we're struggling tonight with that focus, if we're struggling with what we're seeing, God, that you would change that we will no longer be double focused, that we will no longer be seeing two of everything, but we will be a single focus that has a sharp eye set on one thing that will help our mind, that will ultimately help our heart. So God, I thank you for these things, and I pray, Lord, that you change us with this message, and I pray that it challenges us to really focus in on living for you and letting the light shine from inside of us. And God, I pray that tonight it'll be refreshing to be able to discuss these things. That it'll be something that is wholesome and that is good for us in all that we do and all that we say. God, we pray all of these things in your precious name. Amen.